Hello, and welcome back to Play of the Game, the Magic Limited Bit podcast where we actually play the games. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Jason.
and this week we have what hopefully, unless we find a super long tangent about some interesting thing that we didn't consider before we started the spot, a much simpler spot, although still very interesting and with lots of nuance. Don't worry, but it'll probably be a little bit shorter of an episode than last time. And this one actually comes to us from Alex of Limited Level Up's Cordo Calls, as he's known on Twitch.
This was
Someone,
a viewer submission from someone else, right? But it was from
yes,
watching Quarter Call's
I was
stream.
gonna say, someone on my Patreon messaged me this spot and said it brought up a lot of discussion in one of their discords. I don't know if it was something that Alex explicitly like brought to them, or if it was just a link to a log that they found somewhere. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting spot. And I guess before we get into it, just to remind everyone how the podcast works, we are a podcast where every episode we discuss exactly one decision in a game of Magic the Gathering Limited. And the way we do that is there is a video version on YouTube and on Spotify. But if you're just listening in audio form, we will link out to the 17 lands log for exactly the moment in the game that we're going to be talking about. And you can go click on that link, go kind of download the spot in your head, and then come back and listen to the podcast. And hopefully you will have most of the information. But just to give you the information as well in audio form, Jason, do you want to break down the situation that we're looking at?
Yeah, so this is a mid-game situation. We are on turn 5. We were on the play. Both players are still at a pristine 20 life total, though that probably won't be true for long. We have 3 cards to our opponent's 5. We have 6 lands to our opponent's 4 because we cast a ramp spell last turn. That was Proctor's Gaze, I believe. We have in our hand a Vibrant Outburst, a Brush Off, and a Tone Blast. That's the 2-mana deal 3 and tap a thing. For blue-red, the 2 blue counter a spell, but it only costs 1 in the blue if it's countering an instant or sorcery, and the 1 in the red, deal 2 to any target with flashback for 5. That's our hand, a bunch of interaction. And our board has 2 mountains, 2 islands, and 2 blue-green duels, both the like surveilling kind, so we can theoretically surveil, although probably we want to spend our mana this turn on other things. We also have the 1/3 mana dork for instants and sorceries, Hydro Chandler. So we have 7 mana available. And we have, in fact, many different ways we could spend that 7 mana because we also have a Campus Composer on the battlefield. That's the 4 mana 3/4 with Ward 2 that enters prepared. It currently is prepared. The prepared spell is Aqueous Aria. That's the 5 mana, make a 3/3 blue and a red elemental creature token with flying. So we could spend 5 mana on the Campus Composer's spell, and then like 2 mana on one of our other spells. We could like play and flashback Tone Blast. We could theoretically like cast both Tone Blast and Vibrant Outburst, though once we see our opponent's board, that probably won't be the case. Our opponent's board is pretty simple. They have a 3/3 charging Strife Knight. That's the thing with haste that is also a Rummager. It taps to Rummage. They also have Thunderdrum Soloist. That's the 1/3 reach with Opus. Ping your opponent. If it was a big spell, you ping them for 3 instead of 1. They also have, interestingly enough, a mountain, 2 islands, and a black-green dual land in play. So there's some kind of splashing going on, but there's good reason to suspect that they're going to be base red-blue, given that they have 2 red creatures in play and 2 islands in play. Probably the black-green land is to like enable some converge stuff. Finally, they have 5 cards in hand. Their only untapped land, notably, is the black-green land. They tapped blue, blue, red to cast their charging Strife Knight.
Yep. So, like, we could imagine maybe that they have a spell that costs a single black or a single green, given that that's what they left up. But because this
Kind
land
of
is pretty
unlikely.
clearly a splash land, I think that's like notably very unlikely. And I think
Yeah,
it's pretty
there are
easy to
some
discard.
worlds.
Like, yeah, you could think of some things, but like generally, structurally, when you see this kind of thing, I would assume that they are not playing like one drop black or green spells.
Yeah, like there's some worlds where they're like more teamer than they look. Like it's possible that they're even like red, green, splash, blue, and they're just choosing to play two islands for some reason.
Happened to draw
And
both
their
or
splash and
whatever.
have drawn both of them. They haven't shown us any blue spells yet. These are the only two spells they've shown us, in fact. But like obviously red green is going to be a weirder color combination to be your base colors than red blue in the first place, and like you could splash a royal treatment. It's a little unlikely though.
Yeah, agreed. So we are mostly thinking about this as our opponent is tapped. And we have a bunch of options what to do with our 7 mana. And yeah, we have definitely ways to develop our board, or like one way to develop our board, which is spending 5 on making a 3/3 flyer. And then multiple ways that we could interact with the opponent somehow. So there's this Tome Blast, which like technically we do have 7 mana, so we could cast it, flash it back, kill a creature. That seems like a pretty inefficient way to spend our mana. I think we can pretty easily discount that option. But we also have a Vibrant Outburst that deals 3 and taps something. So we can cast that on our turn. We could maybe cast it on the opponent's turn if tapping something is like relevant, maybe if they're going to attack us. And we have the Brush Off, which can be left up on 4 mana to counter anything, can be left up on 2 mana to counter an instant or sorcery. 2 is probably the mode we would be using if we're casting, the 3/3 and leaving that up. So I would say like the main question to answer here is, are we putting this 3/3 on the board and going down to 2 mana? Is that like what we're mostly trying to accomplish with our turn? What do you think about that? Is that like clearly what we want to be doing, do you think?
Yeah, so one thing we can do is look at our deck. I think you can click main deck. Or oh no, we do have access to the deck, yeah. So oh, our deck is like fairly soupy and controlling, right? We have a lot of like powerful top ends. Like we have two flow states as card draw. We have a mathematics and a divergent equation. We have two snarl songs. We have a zealous lorecaster. So we have a lot of late game in this deck. But on the other hand, our hand is not actually like that well set up to go to the late game, right? We have no card draw in our hand. We have 3 spells left, but our opponent also has like 5 cards in hand, right? Like, and they look to probably also be somewhat like value oriented, given that they're choosing to play a black green land. They're probably playing converge spells, right? Um,
Agreed.
so an important question to ask every time you're in this kind of situation is like, who's the beatdown, right? Like, or more accurately, like, what is the role you are trying to play in this game? What are you trying to do right now? How are you trying to win this game? Are we going to try to win this game by like going long and like answering all of our opponent's threats, or are we trying to like be more aggressive right now, or some weird third thing, right? Like sometimes there's weird third things.
Shout out to gender. Um, anyway, I think like asking the question who's the beatdown is actually pretty interesting here, and you could maybe rephrase it as inevitability, like who has inevitability. Our deck is very dense and has a lot of that, but it's also true that we don't currently have any ways to see additional cards, and if we draw like 3 lands in our next 3 draw steps, then we are going to run out of stuff to do pretty quickly. Even if we like find a draw spell and we just happen to draw more draw spells with it, like we're then kind of not really affecting the board over the next few turns, and the opponent could certainly turn the corner on us if we're not like careful about staying ahead. So I think the answer, even though our deck is more controlling, is that we have more lands, we have more mana that lets us be ahead on tempo, and we don't have access to our card flow yet. And so I think we are in at least this situation that we find ourselves the beatdown, in the sense that we would like to get ahead on board and capitalize on that aheadness while our opponent is still trying to deploy their hand. That's like
Yeah,
where I'm seeing this.
The very level one way to read this is like, obviously we have a 3/4 that can attack into their creatures very well, and like we have a removal spell for their 3/3. Like we meaningfully have creatures that can attack while they don't. So like kind of in that sense, we are the beatdown. But like more what you said more broadly also applies, right? Like the current ways that we can leverage our hand is to like interact while we like have somewhat of a clock, even if it's not that fast of a clock, right? Like we're not really killing our opponent that quickly with the cards in their hand. If we just, even if we like made like try to kill them as fast as possible, attacking for 3 and then 6 and then 6 and then 6, so it's still like 4 turns of attacking, right? It's not like that fast. But it still represents pressure, right? It still represents like something that our opponent needs to respond to, that our opponent needs to deal with.
It's a little bit weird, right? Because like you're right, and I think realistically in this spot, we are not going to finish the game with the cards we have access to. Given that our opponent has like 4 lands, probably about to have 5 lands, 5 cards in hand, and our creatures are not that aggressive. They do not represent that much damage or board presence. They're like a medium board presence at most. And so I agree that like answering the question who's the beatdown with like we're the beatdown is a little bit weird. It's kind of more accurate to say that like the way to get the most value out of the cards that we have now and the positioning in the game that we have is to get damage and tempo from them. And like accumulating that value on that axis, the damage axis or the tempo axis, whatever you want to call it, is the most likely to kind of put us into an advantageous position later in the game once the opponent has been able to like deploy some of their stuff and once we've drawn more stuff.
Yeah,
That's how I would
like
put it, which is like an interesting way to kind of be like, it's not exactly that we're the beatdown, but you could also just round it to we're the beatdown and that would be good enough.
yeah, like one big thing here is like, yeah, we're not necessarily going to finish out the game by just like pushing our hand aggressively, but that doesn't mean there isn't a benefit to like being aggressive here, right? Because like developing our board, putting like another threat onto the board and like attacking them while they're like very much in this defensive position means that they have to use more resources to like deal with our board, right? Like they on one hand, they aren't necessarily going to like completely die to our 3/3 and our 3/4, but if they don't do anything, they will eventually. And so they have to do something. And that something could be as simple as like, oh, holding back a blocker to block our 3/4 and our 3/3. And in that case, we're getting value by them not attacking us, or like spending removal spells on their 3/4 and 3/3. In which case, like they're going to be spending mana doing that, not spending mana like developing their own board. Like just while we have this position where we are ahead, it's like good to be able to press that advantage, even if we don't think that it's going to like fully like win the game. It is the best way to leverage what we currently have right now.
Yeah. Another thing to say about it or way to phrase it is like this is the inverse of life total is a resource, right? If we take it away from our opponent, they cannot use it in the future. That certainly counts as a resource gain for us. And so, yeah, like kind of what you're describing, right? If they have less of that resource to play with, they may have to give up things like attacking us or, turning the corner faster. That
Or looting with this 3/3 to make their hand better.
exactly. Yeah. Okay.
So we've been
So
talking very abstractly. I kind of want to connect it to something concrete.
agreed.
I think basically the line I want to advocate for, I think, is the line that like I very instinctually was like, okay, yeah, this is just what I want to do, and I don't think there's like a like big question about it. But though it is something that's like if you're less familiar with like thinking this way of like trying to like leverage like the resources you have, it might not be that intuitive or instinctive. I just want to cast our 5 mana spell to make it 3/3 and kill their 3/3, tap their 1/3 right now, attack for 3, and just have that be our turn. I don't care enough about holding up brush off. I don't care about like holding about. I especially don't really want to be holding up a 4 mana brush off. I absolutely want to be casting the like 5 mana 3/3 this turn just to put on more pressure, and I don't want to like hold off on like casting our Vibrant Outburst, right? Um,
Maximum warlike, you could say.
yeah, indeed, indeed. Like I just want to push damage. You could think about like a protect if they maybe have a protection for spell for Vibrant Outburst, but like we discussed, like that's pretty unlikely. You could think about upkeeping the Vibrant Outburst because theoretically our 3/4 can attack just fine right now. Because if they wanted to block, they would have to double block, and then we can blow that out with the Vibrant Outburst. In fact, you could make that block that attack anyways before casting the Vibrant Outburst, even if you're planning on casting the Outburst this turn.
That's
Um,
actually, I think that's actually a good added wrinkle to the play, right? Like, I think even if the only value we're getting is making our opponent think a little bit, I think it could make sense to attack with the 3/4. Now, you could also make the argument that that's bleeding information and saying that we do have some way to blow out a double block. Maybe you could say that isn't bleeding information because we could be bluffing. Hard to say, right? But like,
Here's an actual amount of information it's bleeding, by the way, which is a very funny small amount of information it's bleeding. But when you cast Vibrant Outburst, they are going to rummage with their 3/3, right? Because like you're killing their 3/3, they're going to want to rummage with it. So if you're doing it pre-combat, like the way you'd want to do it is by is to do it before casting your like 5 mana 3/3, so that your opponent doesn't know that what you're going to do with the rest of your 5 mana this turn, right? Um, and that like gives them a little less information for their rummage. Who knows how much that matters? Um, Whereas like if you want to attack with your 3/4 first, you probably want to cast the 5 mana spell first. Or like maybe it's kind of interesting because you could attack with just the 3/4 first, and then like maybe that makes them more likely to double block because they want to like trade with your 3/4 before you can cast a 5 mana spell. But also it's so transparently like, oh, you probably have something to blow this out that it like it's a
also,
it
what about
altogether
the
very smart.
line attack with 3/4, assume they don't block, and then lead on Vibrant Outburst before casting your 5 mana spell? Isn't that doesn't that not bleed any information?
Well, the downside of that is that you're attacking with a prepared 3/4 instead of an unprepared 3/4. And who knows? Maybe something could go wrong. Maybe they're splashing maybe they're splashing
I mean,
a
to be fair, nothing can go that wrong in that we literally do have a brush off, right?
Okay, sure. I get. Well, we don't. Okay, I would say that having to trade a brush off for a royal treatment is something going
And
wrong.
not develop
I,
our
I
3/3s.
really do not
Yeah,
want to be doing that.
that's fair. Yeah, that is fair. Um, Lots of nuances, even if we kind of agree on what the play is, which is 5 mana, 3/3, and Vibrant Outburst this turn.
Yeah.
Um, I think like the very clear like intuition baseline is just cast both of them right now, because like it doesn't make a huge difference. Like it's at least very difficult to decide what the like theoretical optimum play is to like gather information, make your opponent think, not bleed information, etc.
Yeah,
Um,
this definitely lies in the like doesn't actually really matter that much because like the plays are mostly scripted. Like
yeah.
it only matters if you think that they actually have some chance of like casting a royal treatment, or if you think that they actually have a different chance of blocking your 3/4 based on like whether you've cast your 3/3, or if they like if the information bleed is actually real,
So to be
and they're all
honest,
like very
like
very marginal.
what my intuition says and what I think I would actually do in this situation is I would just untap. I would see that I have like I'm basically immune to getting massively blown out with a double block. And I would just attack with the 3/4 and see how they are thinking about whether or not to double block. And I think that would give
Yeah.
me meaningful information about what they think their positioning is in the game, like whether they feel like protecting their life total is important, or whether they're like, yeah, take three, no problem. I think that to me, at least in paper, would give like some amount of real info, and I think I would like to collect that info personally, at very low risk, but it's not super important. I think like we can talk about that, but that shouldn't be what the episode is about exactly. Like
Yeah.
I think mostly then, if we've decided we want to play the 3/3, which I think is what the theory discussion was about before, of like, we do want to be assertive and kind of put pressure on our opponent. That means putting a creature onto the board that can attack next turn. Then I think the other only thing to think about besides, are we attacking? And if so, what's the timing of the attack? Is it before or after casting spells? Then we could think about, okay, why are we casting Vibrant Outburst instead of leaving up Brush Off? I think that's the last thing that like we haven't explicitly tried to discuss.
I think that their 3/3 just getting value over turn, and I want to kill it before it like like I would say that their start is like not that impressive, right? Like the 1/3 isn't doing that much. The 3/3 is okay. Like it's entirely possible that their hand is awkward. I don't want to give them the ability to like rummage more. So I really want to like if we are casting Vibrant Outburst, I really do not want to wait until their upkeep. Both because they could have more ways they could respond in their upkeep, like a like blue protection spell that they're more likely to have, or even something like Monstrous Rage or something. I don't know. And also just it gives them another rummage, right? They get to activate their 3/3 another time. You could theoretically do something where you like attack with your 3/4. They like make a 3/3 attack with your 3/4, or in some order they don't block. Then you go to your end step and then wait for them to discard first before killing their 3/3 because like they probably will be rummaging.
And so you just want to like have them
and
make the
you
decision
deny
without
them
knowing their
the
3/3 is dying.
yeah,
Yeah,
you deny them the information of like rummaging, of like knowing that their 3/3 is gonna
that's
die
kind of
when they're
defensible,
rummaging.
honestly. I don't know.
It's a small thing. I mean, it's possible that they just don't choose to rummage and then they go to their upkeep and then you try to cast it and then they have like a counter spell or a protection spell. So you are slightly giving up something, but you have to pass first. You have to tell them like I'm not gonna act, and then if they don't act, it's immediately their upkeep.
Right.
Uh,
And if it's rummaging instead of looting, it's quite possible that they like don't want to do it because their hand is good enough.
yeah.
Yeah,
Granted, they
just
chose
backing
not
up
to
though,
attack
to
with
be
their
clear,
3/3.
I was just talking about what if you do not plan on casting the Violent Outburst, you plan on casting the Brush Off on some spell. Like, what if you are deciding, I'll Vibrant Outburst or 3/3 if I don't get to cast this Brush Off, but I'd rather leave it up just to be safe. Why are we not doing that?
Well, I think like the question is kind of just like what kind of spells do you care about brushing off,
I think that is
right?
the question, right? Like, how much do we care about removal spell on Campus Composer? Or how much do we care about, I don't know, pick a somewhat scary but not rare spell like Arcane Omens, right? Like, how bad is that for us? It would kind of trade with the brush off and I guess also get our Tone Blast, which isn't doing very much
Half of
here.
our Tome Blast.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
I mean,
that's
like
not that
there's
bad. There's like stuff you could theoretically think about that is kind of bad, but I guess it's hard for me to think of a spell that isn't like removal or card advantage. And
like it would have to be sort like so the most common card advantage spell. The problem is that the most common card advantage spell that you would want to counter is instant speed anyway. So if you're holding up 2 mana, they can just pass to your turn.
which spell
And
are you
then like
thinking
if you
of?
go for the vibrant outburst, they can just like cast in response. So this is Embrace the Paradox, the one I'm talking about, the
Yeah.
three blue green one. Obviously, like if you get to counter 5 mana, draw 4 cards, the like rare splatter technique, then that would be good. But
If
like
you've
yeah,
seen one
that's
in a
a rare.
previous game, maybe your play
If
changes,
it's
but
this is best of one.
yeah.
Yeah, certainly if you see something in the previous game, your play could change. But also just like I'm not convinced I want to hold up brush off because I like might want to save it for like a big threat. Like I feel like I don't given that our deck is like pretty good at playing the late game, I'm not that worried about our opponent just like spending removal spells in our 3/3 and our 3/4 with Ward 2, especially not our 3/4 with Ward 2 after they've already gotten value. Or like you know, like we've already gotten our 2 for 1 with our 3/4,
None of our
right?
individual creatures are like so crucial to our game plan that them being removed would be a catastrophe. It would just be kind
But
of a fair 1-for-1 trade.
like this is kind of the thing of like, you know, we are trying to push our like beat down in quotes role here, by like by adding pressure to the board where we can, but we're not like fully like we're very much acknowledging that we're not actually going to win this game like just by attacking with our 2/3 power creatures, because our opponent will probably just have answers to them. They're not that hard to answer. So like we're not really playing protect the queen on our clock, right? Like it's not something like that. And
Yes. And also
instead,
just the fact that the game is not going to end with our current clock means that we do value this brush off relatively highly going into a like long-ish game.
yeah, like I think the brush off will be more impactful countering like maybe they play a big threat, right? That then we'd have to counter. That's a lot more worrying than them playing a removal spell, I think. And especially the ability for it later to counter a creature as well as just an instant or sorcery is relevant. Also, especially like knowing the format is important here, right? There's not actually that many like that many scary things they can do on 5 mana in terms of instant and sorceries. On 6 mana, they can cast Snarl Song,
Or
right? Like,
homesickness. Both are pretty important to counter.
yeah,
Yeah.
like 5 mana is not the big breakpoint six is.
Yeah. That is
For
definitely a like you need to think about the actual range of things because I could easily imagine formats where there are good 5 mana sorceries that we really want to counter.
And like if this 3/3 were just like a 3/3 with no other text, then yeah, there wouldn't really be a downside to holding up brush off, right? But the downside of holding up a brush off instead of just immediately casting the vibrant outburst is you give them another rummage, and another rummage can be pretty big when
Another
you're
full look at an
you
extra card really matters in games of Magic.
yeah,
It just
right,
does. Yeah.
you kind of like uh you in fact kind of want the game to go a little longer, like force them to like have to take another draw step to look at that additional the card, because like you kind of just want to draw your big things too where you don't currently have them, right? So
That is
just
the reason
slowing them
why
down.
saying we're the beatdown earlier is not completely accurate because based on your deck, you do kind of want the game to go longer, but in a weird way, the way to accomplish that, we're in maybe a weird third scenario, is to be more assertive in the short term. That's like kind of what we're saying. And the way to be more assertive is to say, I'm not leaving up this brush off. I'm planning on using it in a long game. Instead, I am using this vibrant outburst to have maximal impact on their board and their card scene right now. So that like I am accruing important material for that longer game that I hope I get to play eventually when I draw my card draw.
Yeah. Okay, want to see what Alex did?
Let's see. So Alex played the outburst immediately, quite reasonable. Probably what I would do if I had 15 seconds to think about it on Arena. Although I guess I already said I would maybe like attack with 3/4 first, but doesn't make a huge difference.
I
Cast your
assume not
three
only
three.
arena but arena while streaming.
That too. Oh my god, streaming is so difficult. I'm so impressed with Alex and other streamers who can like play extremely well while streaming. It is, yeah, it is a skill that I think people underrate a lot. So anyway, it attacks and passes. The opponent casts a 5 mana spell that we could theoretically brush off, but it's just killing our 3/3, so it's like not the end of the world. Then we get to attack, Tome Blast to finish off the 1/3, and leave up Brush Off for whatever the 6 mana play is, and it's a Snarl Song. So we get to counter
Wow, who
that.
could have seen this coming?
Who could have seen that coming? Maybe someone with access to the replay or just knowledge of the format. Um, so we attack. There's a Mathemagics. We draw a Zealous Lorecaster, which is really nice because it lets us get back, I assume, the brush off. And then the opponent cannot really stabilize, concedes, and we win. Lovely. So yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
all of
for
that was like
sending this spot.
I,
I forget actually who sent it. I will try to shout them out like in the description maybe. But
yeah.
also thanks to Alex
Because we can
for
see
playing
like
the cool game.
everything that we talked about here was like pretty relevant, right? Like we the fact that Alex developed a 3/3 was very important for like getting the opponent dead. Otherwise, they were going to be able to like use the cards off of Path Magics, right?
The
Saving the
fact that there
brush
was
off.
a spell that we could have brush off cast, but in fact we actually cared much more about countering the spell on 6 rather than 5. Very relevant.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, and
yeah,
then just like having this having just like some amount of clock, right? Again, like at some point it's like we have 4 power of creatures in play, our opponents at 14. It's like we don't even we kill them theoretically in 3 turns. That's not very fast, but still that just
It
like
punishes the
lets
Mathematics tap
out.
out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having the 4 power in play here when they're at 10 and they're trying to tap out for a bunch of card draw, pretty important. Like really meaningful that we were trying to apply maximum pressure instead of like saying, we don't really have a way to close it out. Like we'll just, try to wait until we draw our own card draw, right? That would not have worked out very well. So yeah, you're right. Like I think these pretty simple in the moment decisions that don't look super complicated and in fact are not super complicated compared to, I don't know, the kinds of decisions we talked about last week that can go really in depth in games of Magic, especially as games go later. But like fundamentally solid limited players like Alex really do make these kind of intuition based plays of, I know my role, I know the situation that I'm in, I know how to maximize my cards, I know what I care about, I know what I don't care about, and I'm going to just make that play automatically 85 to 95% of the time, whereas a less skilled, less experienced player might make that kind of play 60 to 70% of the time. And then the other 30 to 40%, they are, I don't know, just like saying, oh, I'm just going to leave up brush off because I don't know, they could play something that I want to counter, right? Like this level of thinking about what do we actually care about and the kind of little decisions like this that are deceptively simple but deceptively important are just so huge for winning games of Magic, especially in limited. So I love our game. It's really beautiful. These kinds of simple spots, they just matter a ton. That is why we have this podcast. So thank you all for listening. Until next time, you can find me at r-condon.bsky.social. How about Jason?
You can find me everywhere at JasonILTG.
And until next time, go out and make some good plays.
Read this one's Patreon.